Yvonne with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A sharp jump in the number of explicit images of minors online has child welfare groups troubled. They're now offering solutions to an issue that is not just affecting Taiwan, but countries globally. John Van Trieste reports.
Reports of explicit images of minors online have exploded in the past few years. And child welfare advocates say it's time to teach children what they can do to protect themselves. Last year, the Health Ministry got over 3,100 reports of child sex abuse material spreading online. That's a nearly six-fold rise from 2018. It's part of a global epidemic. A 2024 report from the Global Child Safety Institute, Childlight, estimated that 1 in 8 of the world's children had been exposed to sexual images or had ones taken of or shared with them without their consent in the last 12 months. Child welfare advocates say a culture of letting minors interact unsupervised with strangers is part of the problem.
我们会看到说，如果有这个直播和交友软体使用经验的，这个在自拍或者是交换性向行为的比例显著是比较高的。
Sociologists say children in tough home situations are especially vulnerable.
发生的时间点刚好都是家里出状况的时间，譬如说，就可能父母亲在想要闹离婚啊，或者是父母亲有比较多的冲突的时候，那他们就会比较想要往网络的方向去寻求支持。
But there's a range of places these photos may come from. Sometimes photos are taken due to peer pressure and leaked by classmates. And then there are criminal groups that solicit images. This makes for a complicated issue, but one advocates say can still be tackled. They want more education for families about online exploitation, and they want schools to teach kids how to be safe online too. Health Ministry officials seem sympathetic.
对每一个孩子来说，他就是一辈子。他一旦他的影像被自拍，然后甚至被诱拍，然后上传到网络之后，就无远弗届。
The government is proactive about seizing web domains that host images of minors. But activists say stopping the flood will require parents getting involved and teaching children about the warning signs of exploitation. Alex Chen and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The new Taiwan dollar surged to a 3-year high on Thursday. The Taiwan dollar has been rallying through June, rising almost 3% to 29.391 against the US dollar. Taiwan's central bank says the spike was driven partly by easing market tensions following the ceasefire between Israel and Iran. A weakening US dollar and Taiwan's strong trade performance also added to the rise. The bank says it will let the currency move with the market forces but would intervene if necessary. The fragile Israel-Iran ceasefire appears to be holding, with U.S. President Donald Trump promising more talks next week. But the war and Iran's threats to blockade the vital Strait of Hormuz has raised questions over global energy security. For more on the situation, Alec McDonald spoke to Fidel Amachi Owusu, security analyst and CEO of DevSec Analytics Africa.
What sort of implications are there for the globe if the Strait of Hormuz were shut now or at a later date?
I would like to see that the region in question, that is the Persian Gulf, is a very strategic region for international reasons. That is, about 20% of global oil is supplied from the area. Saudi Arabia has so much oil, but much of its reserves or much of the drilling happens at that region, the coast, the Persian Gulf coast. And then other countries like Iran, Kuwait, Iraq, all have their oil resources being moved in that corridor. So if it is closed, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it goes to affect global market prices. And therefore, when there is any closure or there's any disruption in the region, it goes to affect global oil prices. And countries, both developed and developing, will be affected by that.
For a country like Taiwan, where there is not a significant amount of oil and natural gas going through the Strait of Hormuz, but it would certainly still have an impact, what sort of considerations might leaders be going through right now?
So these countries will then have to face some challenges because, trying to change your sources of supply is not that easy. It takes time. After years of saber rattling between Israel and Iran, this is the first time we've seen actual exchanges. In the past months and a couple of years, we've seen, especially after the October attack in Israel, we've seen Israel or Tehran and Israel exchanging missiles. But this is the first time there has been an actual war, the 12-day war, so-called, and it has not led to the closure of the Strait. However, in the future, it could. And so many of these countries that rely on energy resources from these straits are going to look for alternatives in the future. And I think they are going to look at new areas like in Africa and other places where new oil finds are being made and developments are following.
So considering the geopolitical situation that Taiwan is in, with Beijing having a lot of influence in Africa right now, do you think Taiwan might have difficulties finding alternative energy and oil field sources in Africa?
I believe that sometimes the global politics is separated from the markets. In that if a country wants to sell its oil, it might not look at how Beijing sees a country before it sells its oil to that country. When it comes to diplomacy, it's a different ballgame. But when it comes to the market, that could also be different. And so I think that no matter what, Taiwan will definitely get an alternative in the markets. And after all, countries such as the United States and others still recognize Taiwan at some levels. And I believe that could also make up for any gaps that could be created as a result of these tensions in the Persian Gulf.
That was Fidel Amachi Owusu from DevSec Analytics Africa. Global carbon dioxide emissions in 2024 hit a new high for the fourth straight year. Industry group The Energy Institute says the world's total energy supply increased by 2% last year. It was also the first year since 2006 in which all major sources of energy, from oil to solar, saw an increase. The authors of the report say that despite record growth in renewable sources, the world is no longer on track to hit green energy goals by 2030. Nearly all members of the NATO alliance have agreed to increase their defense spending. It marks a major foreign policy win for U.S. President Donald Trump, who has long demanded that countries increase their defense budgets, not just NATO partners, but also Taiwan. Chris Gorin reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump is back in Washington following a successful NATO summit at The Hague, where members almost unanimously agreed to raise their defense spending requirements from 2% to 5% of GDP over the next decade.
And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
It's a major achievement for an administration that has called for partner countries around the world, including Taiwan, to increase defense spending rather than relying on U.S. capabilities.
NATO members are pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, even Germany. So it doesn't make sense for countries in Europe to do that while key allies in Asia spend less on defense in the face of an even more formidable threat.
I have a different assessment with respect, Senator, about Taiwan's efforts. I think actually as a proportion of GDP, it's well below 3%. I agree with President Trump that they should be more like 10%, or at least something in that ballpark.
Taiwan has already said that it will increase its defense spending to 3% of GDP.
Currently, Taiwan's defense budget stands at about 2.5% of GDP. Going forward, the government will prioritize special budget allocations to ensure that our defense budget exceeds 3% of GDP.
But this year's summit focused mostly on the recent conflict between Iran and Israel and the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. NATO leaders met with and reaffirmed support for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And despite previous tensions, Zelensky and Trump met on the sidelines of the summit. Trump later leaving open the possibility of further U.S. military assistance for Ukraine.
They do want to have the anti-missile missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots, and we're going to see if we can make some available.
With global tensions high, NATO's new spending target signals a shifting balance in who foots the now much bigger bill for global security. John Su and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
President Lai Ching-te has attended the joint graduation ceremony for Taiwan's 8 military academies. He called on the new military officers to remain disciplined and serve the people. Lai pledged to push forward defense reforms and achieve military self-reliance, encouraging the new military officers to take the lead in safeguarding national security. He also vowed to unite the Taiwanese people so they could give their strongest backing to the military.
身为三军统帅，我的使命就是确保国家的生存发展，保护全体国人的生命财产安全。
President Lai also reminded the new officers to stay vigilant in the face of ongoing authoritarian threats. As esports continue to surge in popularity worldwide, Taiwan is nurturing esport talent right in their classroom. But with intense training schedules and academic pressure, the path to glory is a hard one. Chelsea Wu has the story.
Just like any other high school in Taiwan, students head to class after their lunch break. But this class is different. And here, they're learning the basics of esports. Esports, short for electronic sports, is a fast-growing global industry, and Taiwan is keeping up. Across the country, schools have been launching esports classes and varsity teams in the past decade, preparing students to compete internationally in both mobile and PC games.
我平常都是早上一样上课，然后到下午1点的时候就来训练室，然后就有团练，然后比赛检讨，然后接下来到9点之后，然后晚上回家洗个澡，然后再练习到12点。
Students on the school's esports team train over 8 hours a day, even through winter and summer breaks, to stay ready for competition. The school's 3 teams compete in a number of tournaments annually, including the ACS Summer Tournament, a major event for the mobile esports squad. The tournament draws both live and online audiences, with top teams earning significant prize money.
因为大家都知道，电竞选手的训练强度跟时长非常的长，非常久，所以假设如果你连校队阶段的训练强度你都无法承受，那我觉得也建议是不要走电竞选手这一行。
While the program trains aspiring esports gamers, less than 3% of them will go on to turn pro.
能理解，因为毕竟电竞这条道路非常的凶险，你一个不小心可能就没了工作，所以你还是要有一些其他的副业，或是有办法维持你自己更生的能力。
There is criticism about how the program may come at the cost of other academic subjects.
我知道按这个吗？
买中费啊。
哦。
But one mother who allowed her son to enter the school's esports program believes education goes beyond just grades.
可能大家会觉得打电竞就是很坏小孩之类的什么的，我觉得并不是，对，只是他们有他们的梦想，我觉得很光荣，就是觉得他很棒。他这3年就是一直都在校队，就是自己很努力，不能被刷下来，就是一直很努力的在校队这样子。对，我觉得他很厉害。
And Coach Jerry Fan says the program isn't just about esports.
是在这一段过程里面，我希望他们学习到非常自律的这个精神。就是你在训练的时候，你除了要很自律之外，你要非常渴望胜利。这些东西是你接下来在进到社会工作，甚至你到大学过后进到产业端，其实这是非常好的一个习惯。
While the road to becoming a pro gamer is uncertain, what these students gain along the way, discipline, resilience, and purpose, may be the real victory in the game of life, whether or not they ever grace the global esports stage. Joseph Wu, Peachy Zhuang, and Chelsea Wu for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Follow our social media for more of our stories. Finally, take a look at recyclers in Colombia who covered parts of an iconic plaza with plastic bottles. They're calling for better working conditions and fair payment for their services. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.